What is the most off-the-wall memory you have on the set? Like just something that happened that has stuck with you since it happened?
It was the first time on a set that I almost died. That was cool. Because I had my appendix exploded. So that was cool. And I was like, I must have food poisoning or something. And I would lie down between takes, and they thankfully, the production was like, we're gonna take you to the doctor during lunch. Got a blood test, then went back, shot the rest of the day, then got back to my hotel, and then they got a phone call being like, hey, listen, we're coming to pick you up to go to the emergency room because you're dying. I'm like, oh. So, and then I had my appendix out, and that was awesome.
They can find that out from a blood test.
They can. They're like, there's tons of poison in your blood right now. I'm like, oh, that's from something else? So like, no, it's from appendix. No, it has to be, I'm heavy in this episode, I can't, so it must be something else. So it wasn't, and they had surgery. And then to make matters worse, I was back on set like a week and a half later, and I was like, hey, so Davis, in this episode, he thinks he's injured, he's covered in blood, and he doesn't know it's everyone else's blood, he thinks it's his blood. So let's do that scene first, because I'm still injured. And then next thing I know, and Tom, I think you were there, I had to get up out of the gurney over and over again, which you have to use your So I was in pain a lot, and I was like, I should have just done a walk and talk or something. Like, it would have been fun. Anyway.
That's actual method acting.
So you want Aaron Sorkin to be scripting the episode, so you can just sit there and talk the entire time.
I thought of something.
Okay.
And Tom will remember. I wasn't gonna die, but I passed out in the harness. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Laura is a wonderful and sometimes stubborn person, and we in the best way. We were out in these harnesses, and I had a lot of experience with these being on the show. And as they go through the inside of your leg, there's a very good chance that it can cut off the arteries.
Yeah.
And you don't realize it, you start to get lightheaded and you can black out, you pass out. And I had kind of known what the warning signs were. And when Laura was up there, I just remember...
Was the warning sign when I went unconscious?
And I remember sort of telling her all this, and I was like, listen, no matter what happens, if you're ever uncomfortable, we can just tell them, they bring us down. There's no like extra credit for suffering when you do this.
But the thing is, they kept me up there when they were setting up background actors, and they should have brought me down, but I didn't want to do anything.
I also remember I would go down, and you'd be like, I'm fine. I'm like, all right. And then I'd go back up.
And so I passed out when I was hanging in the air.
Yeah.
Didn't remember anything, and then woke up on the ground, and everyone was around me. And so they sent me back to the trailer, gave me an oxygen mask, and then they knocked on the door and said, okay, the next scene's up. And I'm like, okay. But yeah, I cut off the arteries.
It's so typical.
Like, I'm unconscious, but we have another scene.
Yeah. Are you okay? Oh, yeah, no, go back to your trailer. Here's oxygen, this and that. Okay, we need you in about 10. Thanks.
Yeah, the work doesn't go away. We had an episode where Laura was supposed to get shot by a gun, and she had this squib, and when someone pulls the trigger, it explodes, and there's a lot of protection and stuff, so the actor doesn't get hurt. And the first, I don't know if it was one or two times, but we would count out 1, 2, 3, and then bang. And Laura was kind of shying away, and she knew it was going to happen. And so
explosive on my body.
Yeah, right here. And I said to the guy with the trigger, I go, I didn't tell Laura, but I said, go on 2. And he goes, and he was about to ask me if she knew. I'm like, ready? Action! And I was like, 1, 2, and boy, does she look surprised. It's in the movie.
Hey, it worked. Yeah.
Was there a day on set for the script reason or just in general that was hard to get through simply because you were laughing through the whole thing? So I want to take a turn from exploding appendixes and squibs and knee injuries and let's go to the fun.
We would have some of these so what happens is you start Monday morning at 5:30 or 6 and you finish 12, 14 hours later. And because of the turnarounds that have to happen, you end up starting Friday afternoon going till usually 6 o'clock in the morning on set.
It's a Friday.
Yeah, Friday, right. And then you have your weekend off to come back Monday morning at 6 o'clock. And a lot of times those late night Friday and Saturday mornings, you get a little loopy. and Merzy was directing an episode. Glenn Winter was the DP. We were out in I don't remember what episode it was specifically. We were out in a graveyard. It was just Rosenbaum and I, for the life of me, I don't know what it was, but we just started like just laughing and giggling. We couldn't focus. You know, it was hilarious. It's still hilarious now. And I remember Glenn Winter coming in and saying, like, guys, come on, this isn't fair to Merzy. It's not fair to the crew. And Rosenbaum's like, ah! We lost our minds for like 15 minutes, and then we kind of came back. But yes, that does happen. You become delirious, and the whole situation becomes
Everything's
absurd.
hilarious.
Yeah. Everything's, yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Tom. Am I remembering correctly that they would jimmy it where you did a full day? Let's say you did a 14-hour day, and they're like, great, now that your 14 hours is over, we have a second unit thing, we're gonna start that.
Yeah.
And that sort of resets the clock, and now you got an 8-hour day in second unit. You're like, wait, how is this legal? And they're like, it just is.
Yeah.
It's great.
Don't worry about it, just keep moving.
Yeah, and so like at hour 23, you're like, I remember there were some days where it was just, I think it might have been 24 hours of work.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, everything's funny. You're like, I don't even know what I'm saying.
It's just, you're like sleep deprived and everything else. And by the way, I've more recently been aware of the fact that like talking about like how hard and like it's not the work. The work is amazing and fun, but it's taxing a lot of times because like we have a lot of wildfires where I live in California, in Northern California, and I'm starting to talk to some of these firefighters about how much they work. And it's a very physical, demanding, sometimes 48 hours straight, no sleep and everything else. So I'm humbled by that. But at the same time, like when you're on set that long, it's a little bizarre. It becomes weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember getting the giggles the first time I had to do a scene with you in the loft because you weren't wearing pants. You just chose not to wear pants.
I think we need further.
You overheat, right? And the loft was always very warm.
Yes.
And it would just be your boxers, Birkenstocks, and socks.
Shorts.
From the waist down.
So basically, especially in the loft or the Kent house, if you didn't see me from the waist down, I was probably wearing shorts and sandals. Even though I had the blue jacket or the red jacket, whatever it is, because we shot in an old meat factory, which was either really, really hot or actually only really, really hot. You'd go in there and you'd rehearse and you'd be fine. And then you get back and they turn on all these lights, and I sweat very easily on my face. Like not even all over. My face tends to, and Clark can't sweat. And there were many times where I had ice packs in the back of my, I would just try to cool down all the time because the camera's coming in, and there's Lana, and it's like, God, he's sweating, can you just? Yeah. Fun stuff. So yeah, I was kind of wearing shorts.
Yeah, it was like boxers or shorts. I don't know, but I just didn't expect it. And no one warned me, and it was like my first season, and I'm like, another.
The way you told it, it sounded like briefs, the super briefs, like underoos, the ones that you grew up with, the Superman ones.
Superman underoos.
That's right.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember?
That's on the front.
That's right. I remember one of the challenges of working on the show was that the old meat factory that you're talking about was right underneath a train track, an elevating train track. So you'd be doing this you'd be doing this scene, be like, I've never loved someone as much as I train. Action, as much as I've loved you. Get it?
It's funny you bring it up because we had to get to that place. That was an improvement. When we first got there, we'd start doing these scenes and they would cut. And we were on film when we started, right? When we transitioned over. So they cut. And of course, when you cut, everybody kind of, gets distracted and move on. And then it takes 5 minutes to get going again, okay? And then what we did is we got spotters, right? We tried to get the train schedule, and we had spotters who knew when the train was coming.
Train spotting, Ewan McGregor.
Yeah. This is great coming. Yeah. And then it got to the point where like, and then it was like, guys, there's a train, hold, hold, and then it just became train. And you hear, carry on. You're coming down and talking to me about other planets and wearing that outfit, like.
It's pretty weird.
It's like, you're my cousin, can you put on some more clothes?
I have my own issues with the word
You were the one in Underoos.
True, very true. Or the Daisy Dukes.
No.
I really wanted to burn that outfit after.
And I was naked all the time. I didn't even get wardrobe. I just had me naked all the time.
Yeah, I remember it was like you and I think it was Alan who played Aquaman on the show. I remember you guys were in such good shape because you guys had your shirts off and like Justin. I was like, God, you guys must have a lot of time.
You
It's like we hadn't even done it before. People were like, you work out? I'm like, hell no. When?
There was a secret to the shape that I was in. Have appendicitis. I'm not even kidding. Like, by the time we were shooting that scene, I'm like, well, I just lost about 15 pounds. Perfect. This is perfect. My formative experience in terms of serious stuff was Battlestar Galactica, and they had a weird way. Heard of that show? George Benedict, Richard Hatch? You know? So the way they did it on that show was do one as written and then say whatever you want. So they had to tune me up a little bit on Smallville and say, hey, we like it. Do it less though. You know how you're changing these things? Do that less. But they were very sweet about it. They were super cool about it. And in fact, there were others who were going, just keep doing it. I'm like, well, then half of you hate me, so I'll just not do it as much, you know. But it was cool. Thankfully, I don't think I cost Smallville any money. I've cost other shows money on occasion by doing something that I probably shouldn't have, and then like, ooh, hell, yeah. One of them led to a reshoot of a scene. That's a good one. That was on Battlestar. And then, but the reason I didn't get fired is they used my version. I completely outlived the scene.
They reshot it worse?
They reshot it worse. Yes. And they're like, no, shoot it as written. We reshot it. And then apparently some producer really went to bat and said, no, I know he went off book, but that's actually the way the scene should go. Wow. And they used that, and that's probably why I wasn't fired. Nice. But I had no idea as a young actor, that being my formative experience, that is not, don't, what are you doing? Don't go that far. Don't, you know, they give you some rope, but don't use all of the rope, you know?
Well, I think the best scenario, and this is any job, is that you're working with people who support your creative instincts, you know, within this thing. The two things you really can't do is be late and not know your lines.
Yes.
If you cannot be late and you can know your lines, then you're free to be creative and no one's gonna be mad. But if you're being creative or I guess the third thing is, don't make the fight on set. Like if you wanna make a change, there's time before or the night before, like have the conversation. But when people come in there, you know, I changed a bunch of these lines. Like, oh, here we go. And I have a friend who just fired off at 2 shows. And the first time he got fired, we had this conversation, and I tried to tell him why he can't do that anymore. Got himself another very successful show, got himself fired again. And then so I don't talk to him about it anymore. He's like, I don't know why. I'm like, I don't know why you keep doing it.
I remember Smallville being a very just upbeat set, which is due in no small part to Mr. Welling over here. Because honestly, it really does come from number one, and it trickles down. And he was always, no matter how long the days were, and the fact that he was there every day, was always upbeat. It was always like, hey, what's going on? Let's work, you know? And
well, I was so happy to have all you different people around me. I was the one who was there all the time, so I would, look forward to new blood. Mm-hmm. Like, I just worked with Kristen for 6 hours. Here comes Laura. Cool. That's new energy. Like your guys' energy was almost more important to me.
No, it's okay.
It comes from the top down, and you always set a very positive set. So.
Well, not on the inside.
The only weirdness I ever saw on the Smallville set was when a certain troubled producer picked a fight with Tom right in front of everyone. I remember watching it going, this isn't Tom. This is the producer having weird. And Tom was just like trying to diffuse it, like, hey, it's cool. And this guy just kept needling. It was very, you know who I'm talking about too. When I say a certain troublemaking producer,
I think I do.
Yeah.
The initials, never mind.
It's not who you think it is, too.
Yeah, I have a beef with that guy because he cornered me and made me shave my chest. So I
definitely know it.
Yeah.
We had a very.
Yeah, I know. It's terrible, right?
I'm trying to get some people from the creative and the writing staff from Lucifer and Warner Brothers to do a television show with Cain. That might be set. The episode we did where you saw him in the 50s, that sort of, you realize he could be anywhere. Every episode could be a different time. Well, that would be very expensive, but you could take different seasons and put them in different places in history. I thought that would be fun. So,
how did it feel like coming back to your role that you were playing like 10 years? How does it feel like coming back to that?
So I've answered this question a couple of times, and I tend to talk too much. So it was a great fucking idea. My team, they knew that I wasn't like trying to play that character again. In fact, would rather not or whatnot. Just whatever for immature and stupid, but also really good reasons. But they were like, just check this out. And I read that scene, and I was like, God, this is a good idea. Like, this is a good way to come back. I love what it's about. It's multiverse. It's about, I really like. And then it occurred to me that Clark, this version of Clark would be more like Jonathan Kent, and that's what I tried to do. And if you watch it, you'll see I do the gloves and sort of the walk. Like, that's me trying to be like John Schneider a little bit. And I was able to infuse that, and it was a lot of fun. We went up there. We used the crew from Batwoman, believe it or not. So I didn't know anybody, and obviously Erica was there, and John Cryer is amazing. And my favorite part about that scene is when he says he's Lex, and Clark is like, "You're not Lex." Like, that was fun. That was fun because he's not. You know what I mean? Like, to me, in that sense. So it was a really fun experience, and I thought it was just like, I was really pissed they found a good way to do it. Like, I couldn't say no. I'm like, I want to do it, and I think the fans. I think it's fun to see Clark again in a different way and all the different elements. And now they're doing that now with all the movies. Now they're bringing back all these alternate universes. Michael Keaton, all these different people. I think Ben Affleck's coming back. Like, they're doing all this like, and I was like, well, maybe I could do it. So we'll see. I don't know.
Hi, this is Michael Shanks, and you're watching Fandom Spotlite. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. The fate of the universe may depend on it. And have fun and follow your fandom.